Post one, I'm a 27-year-old woman, and my family has always had a way of reminding me that I was the one left behind. My mom died giving birth to me. It was just me and my dad for 14 years. He worked long hours, but he made sure I never felt alone. He told me stories about my mom, taught me to cook pasta on Sundays, and tucked me in with reminders that family was what you built, not just what you were born into. He was my whole world. My dad had diabetes, and his health got worse fast. I was in ninth grade when I lost him. Suddenly, I was an orphan. At the funeral, my uncle, Dad's older brother, put his arm around me and said, "Don't worry. Family takes care of family." I clung to those words. I didn't realize they were a warning, not a promise, because within weeks my life was dismantled. I moved in with my uncle, his wife, and their son, who was only a year older than me. But I wasn't treated like a daughter or even a cousin. I was a guest, a burden, really. My cousin got new clothes, a spacious bedroom upstairs, and the latest video games. I got the basement. When I asked about going back to my dad's house to get some of my things, they told me it wasn't the right time. Then one Saturday, I begged my aunt to drive me past the house just so I could see it again. The curtains were different. There was a new truck in the driveway. That's when I found out. The house, my dad's house, my house, was already transferred within the family. My uncle told me it was for expenses. I was 15. I had no lawyer, no power, just the sinking realization that the only home I'd ever known was gone. They kept some of Dad's things too, his tools, his furniture, even my mom's engagement ring. I remember asking about it once because it was one of the few pieces of my mom I felt connected to. My uncle brushed me off and said it was safe. I later learned he had passed it along to his son, like it was his to give. That was the moment I stopped believing in their version of family. I survived high school by working part-time jobs, saving every dollar I could, and sleeping on friends' couches when the basement got too much. I graduated, went to community college, and started hustling. At 19, I sold thrifted clothes online. By 20, I had a pop-up booth at weekend markets. By 23, I opened my first boutique. Now at 27, I run multiple stores, employ dozens of people, and manage a small warehouse. I travel sometimes. I buy myself nice things. I build everything I have from nothing, which is why when my phone lit up recently with my uncle's number, I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. He opened with small talk, then got to the point. His son, my cousin, is struggling financially. He has kids, bills piling up, and he just needs a little help. My uncle said, "I have more than enough, and that family helps family." I told him no. I told him I hadn't forgotten how, when I was a grieving child, they locked me out of my father's house, stripped me of his belongings, and gave me a basement like a stray dog. I told him I hadn't forgotten that they handed down my mother's ring as if it belonged to them. He snapped. He accused me of holding grudges and choosing money over blood. He said my dad would be ashamed of me for not helping. He tried to guilt me by bringing up his grandchildren, kids who had nothing to do with what happened back then. I reminded him that he had no problem turning his back on me when I was a kid. He hung up on me. 2 days later, the cousins and extended relatives started calling. Messages flooded in about how it would cost me nothing to help. A few people told me I should remember my roots. Then I started seeing vague Facebook posts about self-made people who forget where they come from. I even saw a blurry photo of my cousin's kids in hand-me-down clothes with a caption about how their wealthy aunt refuses to help. It made me sick. I worked for everything I have. I begged for groceries when I was 17. I packed orders by hand until my fingers cramped. I built my life alone because they stole the foundation out from under me. And now they expect me to write a check and pretend none of it happened. Here's where I'm at. I will not give them money. I will not bail them out. I will not be bullied into feeling guilty because my hard work paid off. If someone reaches out respectfully for the kids, like help with school supplies or food, I might send something directly. But I will not hand over cash to the same adults who stole from me and called it taking care of family. I know the whispers are already starting. I know I'll be painted as the cold, selfish niece, But I've lived that narrative before, and I'm not interested in playing their villain again. So tell me, am I the jerk for refusing to help the family that stole my father's house, my inheritance, and even my mother's engagement ring just because they're suddenly struggling now? First comment, NTA, they robbed you when you were a kid, and now they want a payday because you worked hard. Boundaries are the only sane choice here. Second comment, NTA, you don't owe them a dime. It's not family helping family when family is the reason you had nothing to begin with. Update one. I thought telling my uncle no over the phone would be the end of it. He'd get angry, complain to some relatives, and eventually give up when he realized I wasn't budging. That's what I expected. I should have known better. 2 weeks later, I was in my office at the boutique headquarters when the receptionist came in, looking pale. She whispered, "There's a man in the lobby saying he's your uncle, and he insists this is a family emergency." I sighed and told her to send him away, but before she could, his voice carried down the hall. Loud, booming, the same tone he used to scold me when I was a teenager. "Family comes first. You can't hide from me in your fancy office." My employees froze. Phone stopped ringing. I felt my stomach twist, but I straightened my jacket and walked out. There he was, standing in the middle of the lobby with his arms spread wide, red-faced. He'd brought a folder stuffed with papers that he slammed on the counter as if he had evidence of a crime. "You think you're too good for us now?" he barked the second he saw me. "Your cousin is drowning, the kids need help, and you're sitting here pretending money makes you better than blood." I kept my voice level. "We've already discussed this." "The answer is no." He scoffed, then raised his voice louder. "No? You owe us. We took you in when your father died. We gave you a roof. We gave you food. You wouldn't be here without us." That set me off. "A basement isn't a home. And you didn't give me food out of kindness. You gave me scraps and told me to be grateful. Don't rewrite history just because you want my money now." The whole lobby went silent. My employees stood frozen, watching. A couple of customers near the door awkwardly stepped back outside. But my uncle wasn't finished. He leaned closer, eyes sharp. "Do you think your father would be proud of this? Proud of you hoarding money while his own niece and nephew," he gestured dramatically, "are suffering?" He believed in family above everything. That was when I lost my patience. "Don't you dare use my father's name. He would be ashamed of you, not me. He trusted you to look after me, and you stole his house and everything in it. You paraded around in his furniture while I begged for a couch to sleep on." My uncle's face went pale for a moment before he recovered. "That's in the past," he snapped. "Grudges don't feed hungry mouths. Blood comes first. You've forgotten your roots." "I haven't forgotten anything," I said flatly. "You did. The moment you put your son above me and took what wasn't yours." He stood there shaking, and then, in a last desperate attempt, he shouted, "Your mother's ring is on my daughter-in-law's finger. A symbol of family passed down. Do you think she deserves to suffer because you're holding on to bitterness?" That was it. That was the first time he'd admitted it aloud, that the ring my mother wore, the one I'd asked about at 15, was not safe at all. He'd given it away like it belonged to him. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice calm. "Thank you for reminding me about the ring. I'll make sure it's back where it belongs soon enough." His eyes flickered, realizing he'd said too much, but instead of backing down, he grabbed the papers he'd brought and shoved them toward me. "We'll take this to court. You'll regret turning your back on family." I picked them up, glanced at the nonsense, printed out bills, scribbled notes about expenses, a handwritten IOU that looked like it had been written yesterday, and handed them back. "Good. Then court is where we'll settle this." The receptionist, bless her, called security. My uncle tried to argue with them, but when they firmly guided him out, he didn't resist. He just kept muttering about how the whole family would hear of my cruelty. When the door closed, I turned to my staff. They looked rattled, unsure of what to say. I smiled as evenly as I could manage. "I'm sorry you had to witness that. Please get back to work. We'll handle this." But inside, my hands were still shaking. That night, I got messages from cousins and extended relatives. Why are you humiliating your uncle? Why not just help a little? It would mean nothing to you, but everything to them. The smear campaign was starting. I realized then that this wasn't going to fade quietly. My uncle was gearing up for a fight. But this time, I wasn't 15 and powerless. I wasn't living in a basement with no voice. I had resources, I had evidence, and for the first time, I had the leverage. This wasn't just about saying no anymore, it was about finally setting the record straight. First comment, NTA. He stole your inheritance, and now he's trying to use public scenes and guilt trips to squeeze money out of you. Document everything, he just handed you proof. Second comment, NTA. The audacity of yelling about your mother's ring in your own office? That's a confession and leverage. Don't let him spin this. You hold all the cards now. Update 2. After my uncle's meltdown in my office, I knew he wouldn't let things rest. But even I underestimated how quickly he would turn it into a circus. It started with phone calls. At first, it was just a couple of relatives, the kind who never check in unless there's gossip to share. They parroted the same line. It would mean so little to you, but so much to them. When I didn't cave, the tone shifted. One cousin wrote, I can't believe you'd rather let children suffer than swallow your pride. Then came Facebook. Suddenly, there were posts about selfish people forgetting where they came from. My name wasn't in them, but my photo sure was. A picture from a local business magazine profile I'd done. It was shared alongside captions like, some people think success means you don't need family anymore. It escalated further when photos of my cousin's kids started circulating. Blurry shots of them in oversized t-shirts and sneakers with holes, standing in front of a rundown swing set. The captions read, their aunt runs multiple stores and flies around the world, but won't help them. The comment section was a feeding frenzy of strangers calling me heartless. What none of those people knew was that my cousin's wife comes from a stable family. She works full time, and they've supported her through every tough patch. Her kids aren't starving. They have food, clothes, and a safe place to sleep. The staged photos were a performance just like everything else. Then the reviews started hitting my stores. Overnight, I went from 4 and 5 stars to a flood of 1-star reviews, calling me a greedy witch and a monster who won't help starving children. Some reviews were word for word identical, which made it obvious they were planted. One even used a stock photo of a crying child as proof of my negligence. I'll admit, for a day or two, it shook me. I worried about customers believing the lies. But then I remembered, I am not 15 anymore. I don't have to roll over. I called my lawyer and handed her everything. Screenshots of posts, copies of texts, the review spam, even video from my lobby cameras of my uncle's outburst. She told me to document everything, stay quiet publicly, and let her handle the next move. Meanwhile, I crafted a statement for my employees. I told them, you may see things online. Please don't engage. This is personal, not professional, and I promise you'll be protected. Seeing their relief when I addressed it head on reminded me who I was fighting for. Not my uncle, not my cousin, but myself and the people who rely on me. Still, the personal attacks kept coming. My uncle even posted a long rant where he called me ice-hearted and claimed my dad would be ashamed of me. He wrote that my father believed family should stick together and that I was spitting on his memory. That line almost made me throw my phone. My father would have believed in family sticking together, but not like this. Not when his own brother stole his house, gave away my mother's ring, and left me in a basement to rot. If Dad could see this, he'd be ashamed of them. I've held my tongue so far, but I can feel the tide turning. My uncle thinks he's painting me into a corner with his sob stories and staged photos. But what he doesn't realize is that he's building my case for me. Every review, every post, every fake photo is more proof of harassment and defamation. The final straw came when someone spray painted Greedy Witch on the side of one of my stores. Security footage caught 2 of my relatives doing it. My lawyer called the police that night. Charges are pending. That's when I realized this isn't just family drama anymore. This is a war they started, and it's going to end in a courtroom. They think they're smearing me, What they're really doing is digging their own graves. First comment, NTA. They're trying to weaponize social media and fake sympathy, but all they're doing is handing you evidence of harassment. Stay calm. You're playing this perfectly. Second comment, NTA. The kids aren't starving. Their mom's side takes care of them. This is pure manipulation. You're not cold. You're the only one seeing through their scam. Update 3. After the graffiti incident, I figured things would finally quiet down. Surely, I thought, once police reports were filed and my lawyer got involved, my uncle and cousin would realize they'd gone too far. I was wrong. Instead, I got an invitation, more like a summons, to a family meeting at my uncle's house. The message was filled with condescending lines about resolving this without outsiders and choosing love over bitterness. It was obvious they thought I would cave if enough relatives cornered me. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but my lawyer gave me a better idea: show up, keep calm, and bring backup in the form of documentation. So I went. When I walked in, it was like walking onto a stage. My uncle, my cousin, his wife, and a handful of aunts and cousins were all gathered in the living room. The kids were shuttled upstairs, which told me this wasn't going to be polite. There were even snacks laid out, like they thought I'd be softened by cookies and coffee. I sat down without touching anything. My uncle launched right in. "You've caused enough damage," he said. "This nonsense with lawyers and police has to stop. You're tearing the family apart. Just help your cousin, and we can put this behind us." I kept my voice even. "No, I've said it before. I won't be bullied into paying you, and I will not be guilt-tripped into forgetting what you stole from me." His face flushed. He pointed at me like I was a misbehaving child. "We raised you when your father died. You owe us everything. That house was ours to manage, and your mother's ring is with my daughter-in-law now, where it belongs. If you had any decency, you'd stop clinging to grudges." That was it, the moment they admitted in front of half the family that they had taken everything that mattered to me. I smiled, calm as I could manage. "Thank you for saying that out loud. It will make things easier in court." The room buzzed with confusion. "Court?" one cousin asked. I leaned back, folded my hands, and said, "Yes, court, for harassment, defamation, and for reclaiming my inheritance, including my father's house and my mother's engagement ring." Right on cue, the doorbell rang. My uncle frowned, thinking it was another relative arriving late. Instead, a man in a suit stepped in with a clipboard. "Process server," he announced. He handed an envelope to my uncle, another to my cousin, and several more to the relatives who had been loudest in the smear campaign. The room erupted. My uncle's face turned crimson as he shouted that I was humiliating him. My cousin's wife looked horrified as she skimmed the papers. One aunt gasped and dropped hers on the coffee table like it burned. I stayed seated, calm, steady. "This isn't about humiliation," I said. "This is about consequences. You stole from me when I was a child. You've harassed me, smeared my name, vandalized my stores, and dragged innocent people into your lies. That ends now." My uncle tried to shout me down, but I raised my hand. "One more thing. Don't think this will stay hidden. Court records are public. Everyone will see the truth you've tried so hard to bury." He sputtered, threatening to fight to the death in court, calling me ungrateful and cold. But I could see the cracks forming. His voice shook. His wife wouldn't meet his eyes. And my cousin's wife. She looked at the ring on her finger, then at me, and her expression hardened. I didn't stay for the shouting. I stood, thanked the process server, and walked out. Behind me, chaos erupted. In the car on the way home, my hands finally started shaking. Not from fear, from relief. For the first time since I was 15, I felt like I had the upper hand. This wasn't a family squabble anymore. It was a legal battle. And this time, I wasn't the powerless kid in the basement. I was the one holding the cards. First comment, NTA. That was a power move, serving them right in the middle of their family meeting. You didn't humiliate them. They humiliated themselves by stealing from you and doubling down. Second comment, NTA. The daughter-in-law, realizing the truth about the ring. That's going to blow up their family unity real quick. You played this perfectly. Update 4. If I thought serving my uncle and cousin would end the smear campaign, I was wrong. Instead, the family group chat exploded. Half the relatives accused me of airing dirty laundry, while the other half suddenly went quiet, clearly realizing they'd backed the wrong horse. But the most unexpected shift came from my cousin's wife. 2 days after the meeting, she messaged me privately. Just one line, "Can we talk?" We met at a coffee shop away from the family. She came in without the kids and without the ring. I noticed immediately her finger was bare. She didn't waste time. "That ring," she said, voice tight, "was supposed to be your mother's? They told me it was just a family heirloom, no strings attached. I had no idea they gave it to me after stealing it from you." I nodded, keeping my face calm even as my chest tightened. "Yes, it was my mom's engagement ring. I asked about it when I was 15. Your father-in-law told me it was safe. Now I know he just handed it down, like it was his to give." Her eyes welled up. "I would never have worn it if I'd known. I feel sick." She slid a small velvet box across the table. "It's yours." "It always should have been." I thanked her quietly. For a second, she almost broke down. Then she squared her shoulders. "I've been carrying this family for years. I pay the bills, I cover the kids' needs, and he spends his time making excuses. I thought maybe he'd grow up eventually. But watching him sit there while his father screamed at you, seeing those court papers, I realized I've been lied to as much as you have." I asked what she planned to do. She took a deep breath. "I'm leaving him. The kids and I are moving in with my sister. I'm done being the breadwinner for a man who won't even tell me the truth." That was the moment I knew the family sympathy card had shattered. The children weren't going to suffer. Their mother's side of the family was solid and already stepping up. My cousin lost the one person propping up his image as the hard-working family man. But the fallout didn't stop there. When my lawyer filed the inheritance claim, we included documentation about how the house and belongings had been transferred after my dad's death. That forced a deep dive into the past. And that's when the ugliest truth came out. My dad hadn't just died from diabetes complications. He'd been rationing insulin because my uncle refused to help him buy more, even though he owed my father money at the time. My lawyer found witnesses who remembered my dad asking for help and records showing my uncle had the funds but chose to use them elsewhere. I sat in her office staring at the paperwork, my throat tight. "So you're telling me he let my dad die?" She nodded grimly. "He withheld money that could have bought insulin. You were a child, you couldn't have known. But yes, that's what the record shows." I left her office and sat in my car for almost an hour, shaken. Every memory of my dad came back. His tired smile, the way he winced when he checked his blood sugar, how he tried to reassure me it was under control. All the while, his own brother could have helped and didn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about 15-year-old me, begging to know what happened to the house, asking about the ring, being told to be grateful while the truth was that they'd already stolen my future and my father's last chance. But here's the thing. Instead of breaking me, it solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about property anymore. This was about justice, about finally holding them accountable for everything they did, to me and to my dad. The next hearing is scheduled for next month. My uncle is blustering, claiming he did what he had to for the family. My cousin is sulking in silence, trying to figure out how to spin his wife leaving him. And me? I'm preparing to reclaim everything. They wanted to paint me as cold-hearted. But now the truth is out, and it's colder than anything I ever said. First comment, NTA, your cousin's wife giving the ring back and leaving him? That's karma in action. And the insulin revelation, absolutely devastating. They deserve to lose everything. Second comment, NTA, this isn't a grudge anymore, it's justice. They let your dad die and then stole from you. Taking back the house and the ring is the bare minimum. Update 5. The court hearings dragged on for weeks. My uncle tried everything. Crocodile tears about how he took me in when no one else would, speeches about family unity. even claiming that my dad would have wanted the house kept in the bloodline. My cousin sat behind him the whole time, arms crossed, glaring at me like I was the one who betrayed him. But the evidence spoke louder than their speeches. My lawyer presented transfer documents that showed exactly how fast my uncle moved after my dad's death. Witness statements confirmed my dad asked him for help with insulin, only to be brushed off. Screenshots of the smear campaign, the staged photos of the kids, and the fake reviews tied the whole pattern of harassment together. It wasn't just about what they stole, it was about the years of lies and intimidation that followed. When the judge finally read the ruling, it was decisive. The house my uncle took was to be returned to me. The court acknowledged it as part of my rightful inheritance. My uncle and cousin were also ordered to pay damages for harassment and defamation. Nothing life-ruining, but enough to sting. The look on my uncle's face when he heard the words, "return to the plaintiff," was something I'll never forget. His jaw dropped, his shoulders slumped, and for the first time in my life, I saw him speechless. My cousin muttered under his breath, and the judge actually banged the gavel to quiet him. After court, I walked out with my lawyer, head high. Behind me, my uncle stumbled down the courthouse steps like he'd aged 10 years. He tried to corner me in the parking lot, but security intercepted him. His words carried anyway. "You'll regret this. You destroyed this family." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. 2 weeks later, I stood in my father's house again. It needed work. Years of neglect had left the paint chipped and the floors dull, but it was mine. Walking through those rooms, I could almost hear Dad humming in the kitchen, smell the pasta he used to cook on Sundays. For the first time in 13 years, I felt like I was home. Meanwhile, the fallout for them was brutal but entirely deserved. My cousin's wife had already left him, and now that the house was gone, he had to move into a cramped rental. His wife's family welcomed her and the kids with open arms. From what I've heard, she's doing fine, working, supported, and finally free of his excuses. My uncle is bitter. He tells anyone who will listen that I ruined him, but the reality is he ruined himself the day he refused to help my dad and then stole from me. Now he's stuck in a dingy duplex with peeling paint and neighbors who don't care about his sob stories. He still has his son, but their relationship looks strained. Apparently, they fight constantly about whose fault this all is. The rest of the family, quiet. Some apologize privately, admitting they believe my uncle's lies, until the court records proved otherwise. Others won't say a word, too embarrassed to admit they harassed me online for nothing. Either way, I don't care. Their opinions don't matter anymore. I have my father's house, I have my mother's ring, and I have peace. It's not about money. I've built my own life, my own business, and I don't need their approval. It's about knowing that the things that were stolen from me as a grieving child are back where they belong, about knowing that my dad's memory wasn't erased by their lies. I look at the ring sometimes, resting in its box. It's small, simple, nothing flashy compared to what I could buy myself now, but it's priceless to me. It's proof that my parents existed, that they loved each other, and that I was their daughter. They tried to strip me of everything. Instead, I reclaimed it all. First comment, NTA. You didn't destroy the family. They did when they stole from you and let your dad suffer. Getting the house and ring back is pure justice. Second comment, NTA. Your uncle and cousin played stupid games and lost. Enjoy your father's house. They can enjoy their rental. Final update. It's been almost a year since the court case ended, and I can finally say I feel settled. For the first time since I was a teenager, my life isn't shadowed by fear of what my uncle will do next. The house is mine again. Over the past months, I've renovated it bit by bit. Fresh paint on the walls, refinished floors, a new garden in the backyard where the weeds had taken over. Every Saturday, I spend a few hours there, even if it's just to water plants or sit on the porch with coffee. I still live closer to my business headquarters, but this house isn't about convenience. It's about roots, about having something of my dad's that can't be stolen anymore. The first time I cooked pasta in the kitchen again, I cried. Not from sadness, but from release. For years, I carried the ache of knowing they had stripped me of the last physical pieces of my parents. Now, standing at the stove with garlic sizzling, I felt like I had brought part of my dad back to life. As for the ring, it's tucked safely away in a small box. I haven't worn it yet. Maybe I will one day, maybe not. But knowing it's in my possession, not on someone else's hand, under false pretenses, is enough. It's one of the few things that tied me to my mom, and reclaiming it was like reclaiming her presence in my life. My business is thriving. I've opened another location and launched an online expansion that's been more successful than I ever dreamed. The smear campaign that once had me rattled has evaporated. My loyal customers didn't buy into the lies, and the trolls who left fake reviews moved on after they realized they couldn't shake me. I stood my ground, and in the end, my reputation only grew stronger because of it. The fallout from my uncle and cousin is exactly what you'd expect. They're still in that cramped rental, still complaining to anyone who will listen about how I tore the family apart. Relatives tell me they spend most of their time blaming each other. My uncle furious that his son couldn't hold his marriage together. My cousin bitter that his father dragged him into lawsuits he never had the brains to fight. My cousin's ex-wife, on the other hand, is thriving. She lives with her sister now, working and raising her kids with stability they never had under him. She sent me a thank you card a few months ago, not for the lawsuit, but for being honest about the ring. She wrote that the truth gave her the courage to walk away and that her children are better off because of it. I keep that card in my office as a quiet reminder that standing my ground had ripple effects I didn't expect. The rest of the family has gone quiet. Some have apologized privately, admitting they jumped on my uncle's bandwagon because it was easier than confronting him. I don't hold grudges, but I also don't forget. I've chosen to keep my distance. They made their choices. I made mine. Sometimes I still think about the hardest part, the revelation about my dad's insulin. That truth sits heavy on me, knowing my uncle's selfishness cost him more than money. But instead of letting that bitterness poison me, I use it as fuel, fuel to keep building, to keep honoring my dad's memory by living the life he wanted for me. A life where I'm safe, stable, and strong enough to stand up for myself. If there's one lesson I've learned from all of this, it's that family isn't defined by blood. Family are the people who show up when you're at your lowest, not the ones who exploit your grief and then come crawling back when they want something. My uncle and cousin thought they could corner me forever. Instead, I turned the tables. I took back my father's house, my mother's ring, and my own story. I've closed the door on them now. They can stew in their rental, bitter and broken, while I move forward surrounded by the life I built myself. And honestly, that's the sweetest victory of all.